Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of the Andrew Eborn Show. And we're going to be joined on the line by a rather special guest. Let's see if we can get hold of him.
Hello.
Hello, is that George?
It is.
It's Andrew.
Andrew, how are you?
I am incredibly well. How are you?
Oh, still breathing,
Well-
still dreaming.
Oh, fantastic. But not only breathing and dreaming, but happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was a couple of days ago.
I thought it was on the 15th.
No, 13th.
Oh, did they get it all wrong in the press?
What press?
Oh, it's all over the place on that very reliable source like Wikipedia.
Is it?
Yeah, it's put you down as the 15th.
Yeah.
So your birthday was the same day as Margaret Thatcher then?
Margaret Thatcher, Ali G, Paul Simon, used to be Cliff Richards, but he changed it to the 14th for some reason.
You want to say that, I think that's where the confusion, because Cliff's was yesterday, and Cliff is the same age as you.
Yeah.
So why did it? What? Sorry. So the press have changed your date, and Cliff changed his. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes, because he was born in India, and maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was a different day there than here, I don't know.
A different time zone, because no, I always thought we were limbering up until the 15th, but you're, obviously you started a couple of days earlier. But on your birth certificate it says the 13th. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, brilliant. Well, many happy returns on your 80th birthday. How does it feel?
Feels okay. Feels okay. It was John Otway made my day because he sent me a couple of £100 in an envelope.
I know. I think it's brilliant.
And everything is progressing. Last Friday on the John Lennon's 80th birthday, Ben Reel did a special concert in Ireland, and within the concert he set the Wonder Party in motion and released a single called Imagination, which is going to be the anthem of the Wonder Party. And everything proceeds. So now I'm looking, because I couldn't do what I wanted to do on my birthday and set things in motion. I'm looking at January the 7th to do something that's a date that has significance for me from the past, and so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, that sounds great. So what's the significance of January the 7th? I know January the 8th was Stephen Hawking's birthday. So what's yeah, absolutely. So what was January the 7th?
January the 7th, 1976 was the last day of my mystical trip that had gone on for 6 months, and 6 years later, 7 years, 1983, my dad died on the 7th, and 1973, and then 1985, I I'd organised a party at the Camden Palace, and it was the coldest day for I don't know, the coldest day ever, I think. And I'd ordered an open top bus and a steel band going around London trying to attract people to the party at Camden Palace. And it was just, the whole day was a fiasco. So that's January the 7th, essentially. Newspaper headlines: Captain Rainbow blows mint on party for one. That was a big article in the local paper about it, and picture of me on Hampstead Heath on my own, launching 1,000 balloons, and I don't know. So that was January the 7th.
So we'll have to dig out those sort of press things. I mean, it's always important, these dates, and they say we've got to get the press. There's nothing worse than the press getting it wrong. So your birthday was actually, as you say, a couple of days ago on the 13th, even though it says it's the 15th. But January the 7th is the next important date. And you mentioned in your message to me about getting a candidate. You mentioned John Otway, and you also mentioned Russell Brand. Talk to me about the mayoral candidates. Who's your preference, and why are you picking either of those two?
Well, I don't know. Either of them would suit, but I just want to let it be known that we're looking to put up. The Wonder Party will be looking to put up a candidate, not to be the mayor, but to give the people of London the chance to vote to become an independent city-state, and it's fun thinking about it.
Well, it certainly sounds fun. But I mean, you mentioned about some history with John as well, and we're gonna get him on the show and talk to John in the not too distant future. Why particularly John? Tell me about. Have you asked him? And did he agree?
John, no. I've floated the idea. I think he may go for it. It's I don't know. I really don't know. There's time, but I don't know. I want to crowdfund to raise £999,999 to make a film that tells the story of what we're trying to do, essentially. And I don't know, Andrew.
Oh no, well, it's good. What about Russell? Have you asked Russell if he wants to do it?
I've had no direct contact with Russell, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility.
And it wouldn't be the first time. We've had comedians before. I know that previously Eddie Izzard was talking about running for London mayor.
But I don't know. The whole COVID thing is such a nonsense, and did you see the newspaper article a couple of days ago that was showing that the average age of people that have died of or with COVID is like 82, over 82 years old, and the whole thing is it's just ridiculous. It's the virus is something that we have to learn to live with. Essentially, it's all these measures. I don't know.
Well, especially if they say it's an average age of 82 sounds very old. And you raise two important points. You say whether they die with or of, because they die with it, and they're sort of saying all sorts of people might have had it. But to make an average age of 82 means that some would be in their 90s, some in their hundreds, and some a bit younger.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's all about numbers, but the numbers prove that really the virus is not that serious.
Oh, I think that probably those who are affected by it. I mean, it's tragic, and I do know people who have been struck down with it and have suffered terribly. And I know people who've been lost as a result of it. So I think it is important, and our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to all of those who are affected. But just in terms of the other stuff, the other thing we were looking for was the Spirit of Truth and the ongoing casting of that. How's that going?
Yeah, well, it's. I'm still scribbling around and want to get it as simple as possible, and that will come together, Andrew. That will all happen soon, hopefully. We should be getting some press about what we're trying to do, essentially, and I mean, just to be able to clearly show the Bible portrays Jesus as being the Antichrist, and that's part of the humour of the whole thing, and really nobody can argue with what the Bible clearly says in writing, and what it says in writing is confirmed in the Bible's numerology, and that's a big story.
Well, you say nobody can argue. I mean, people have spent generations arguing about what various scriptures say. So I think not only could they do. It's ongoing. But as you know, we always
people don't read it. I mean, statements that Jesus is said to have made, like, think not that I come to bring peace on earth. I come with the sword to create division, and I come to bring fire on the earth, and if any man come to me and hates not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. How can anybody believe that this character is the Messiah? It's the first two Gospels come on the scene about 40, 50 years after he was supposed to have been around, and Matthew and Mark's Gospels both refer to him as Jesus, who is called Christ, not who is Christ, who is called Christ, but both of them portray him as being a false prophet, because they have been saying that he's going to return in great splendor while the generation that he's living in will still be alive, and those two Gospels appear after that generation has passed away. So those two Gospels are clearly designed to portray him as being a false prophet, and he doesn't say a single thing in the Gospels that could be vaguely messianic, essentially. Everything he does is to create division, not to bring people together. But it's a mystical story. It's and part of the humour behind everything, and so yeah, we'll get it happening, Andrew.
We've had Jonathan Hansler, who's been on both as himself and also as his portrayal of Peter Cook, your old mate. But they've both done the Spirit of Truth and that sort of side. I think that the next stage is we were waiting for the latest script, and then we were going to introduce.
No, it will be the final script, and I'll get it together soon.
Excellent. And talking of getting it together soon, I mean, celebrating your birthday, and I say it's a pity the press got it all wrong. It's not the first time they've got things wrong. But you must have had some previous birthday celebrations, 80 now, which is fantastic. Tell me, with your old neighbour, how did you used to celebrate with Peter Cook?
I had a few birthday parties that were significant, and back in 1985, there was a party that Peter ended up lending me the money to stage in Hampstead, and American film student made a film of Captain Rainbow called The Rainbow Connection. I don't have a copy handy that I could send you. It was like a quarter of an hour film.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
And Peter was glimpsed here and there in that film. But yesterday, the Peter Cook that got me involved with John Otway, he phoned me up, and haven't spoken to him for ages. But that was a great story, the John Otway story. He was trying to organise a world tour, and he was hiring a jet and two jets originally, and wanted to fly his fans around the world to do a world tour. And I got involved and lent him 50 grand. It was my last money. He was going to put our Let's Stick Together slogan painted on the plane and what have you, and within about 3 weeks of me lending him the 50 grand, the whole thing was cancelled, and it was supposed to kick off from the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and that event went ahead. There were all sorts of people who thought they were going to be flying around the world, came to the Cavern Club, and it's a good story. It really is, and
I mean, it sounds good. So how is it supposed to work? So what did the 50 grand go on?
50 grand was to go towards paying for the jet, essentially, and as I say, it was a fiasco.
And who was going to, you say the fan, who was going to be on the jet? Because you can't get all the fans on the jet. Who was going to be on it?
No, no. The fans were supposed to pay something like $4,000 each or something to go on this world tour, and there was quite big press articles about it beforehand, and as I say, it didn't happen.
Did any fans buy some tickets? There must have been some who thought, "Oh, this is lovely."
Yeah, but not enough. And he's a character, John, and I don't know.
Well, we're looking forward to talking to him. You're going to introduce us, get him on the show.
Yeah. It's I don't know.
Oh no, we'll find out. So the idea was, what, people pay £4,000 and they would accompany John on a world tour?
Yeah, different venues, and not playing in the venues, but playing outside the venues, and it was all. It was all a fiasco.
Well, I'm sorry it was a fiasco, but it's a but the fans who paid the £4,000 or whatever, did they get their money back?
Yeah.
They got their money back. So what did your $50,000 go on?
Went towards paying the deposit for the jet, and
so that was lost, was it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think Peter Cook lost money as well, and not as much as me, but ultimately, I think the story's worth $50,000, it's and occasionally he sends me £100 or £150, and it was nice to get a surprise in the post, because I hadn't asked him, because I know since lockdown and everything he hasn't been gigging or doing anything, and I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, it's tough for a lot of musicians, and they've all got obviously expenses continue, and people haven't been able to perform. They haven't been able to get out on the road. So apart from missing the thrill of performing live, obviously there's massive hole in the income stream.
Mm-hmm. But last Friday's Ben Weir concert was, he set the Wonder Party in motion. He released his song Imagination as have you listened to it?
Not yet. We're gonna play that as well. So I want to have a listen to all of that, because I know the original plan, we were going to all get together in Camden, weren't we?
Yeah, the Matt Music Studio Cafe, and I say I'm penciling in January the 7th now
to celebrate then, because I know rather than the 13th of October, we now do it January the 7th, a day before Stephen Hawking's birthday, as we say. But so all good stuff. So what other presents did you get apart from the £200 from John Otway?
No presents, but a few nice cards, and it was quiet, and I had my first radio call the morning after on Talk Radio, speaking to James Max, and that
because you've been doing quite a bit of radio since we last spoke.
I'm denied a platform, really, and most presenters don't accept my calls, and it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, but you've been on a fair bit, haven't you? You were on Ian Lee fairly recently, and various others.
Yeah, but Ian's gone now. He's not at talk radio anymore, and I didn't have a good relationship with him towards the end of his time there, and there is no presenter on the radio that holds a proper conversation with me. But I've really been trying to draw attention to the book of Ecclesiastes and chapter 7, verse 1. Ecclesiastes, the first 15 verses, they are the most informative verses in the Bible, and the 15th verse is the first verse of chapter 7, and it says, this is supposedly King Solomon speaking from beyond the grave, and he says, a good name is better than precious ointment, and death than the day of one's birth. So the Bible is telling us that we'll all be better off when we're dead, essentially, and I'm sure that's true, and so I've been trying to draw people's attention to that. I've been trying to ask the question, are you aware that the Bible tells us that we'll all be better off dead? And I'm sure that's true, Andrew. I'm sure we're all made unconscious spirit entities, and death releases us to return from whence we came, and that, as I say, I've been trying to draw attention to in the present circumstances. He also says there's a time and a season for everything, and there's no new thing under the sun, and lays out that everything is predetermined. It's like a repetitive play that we're involved in, and one line he says there's a time and a season for everything, and he lays out certain things, and one of the lines is a time for embracing and a time to refrain from embracing. That fits the time where we're living in now, and the whole COVID nonsense. And
Well, it's certainly, and we've spoken about that before, George. And what I love as well, because last time we spoke about it, you said that everything's predestined, other than games involving balls.
Team games with balls, and lotteries that use balls, but everything else in my mind is predetermined,
and I remember last time you told me as well, George, which I loved, was you were telling me that you had a bet, or you told Peter Cook the result of a snooker match.
Yeah, that was back in 1985, and Peter came round lunchtime on the final day of the tournament, and he asked me what was going to happen, and I said it's going to go to the last frame, and Dennis Taylor will win against Steve Davis. He'll win on the black ball in the last frame, and it will be the only time in the whole match that he will have been ahead, and that's exactly what happened.
No, I remember you saying it's glorious, and I loved.
I didn't bet on it.
Well, was Peter a betting man? Did Peter bet on anything?
Oh yeah. He was very superstitious. He'd bet on horse races, and he'd go out in the garden he couldn't bear watching it. He just used to bet and not watch what he'd bet on. But yeah.
Did he ever go to the race courses themselves, or just always watch on television?
Television.
Always television. You never went with him to a racetrack?
No.
Right. Well, it all seemed to happen in 1985, apart from the Dennis Taylor snooker match and that big party you had. Did Peter ever give you presents?
No.
Because you were neighbours and friends, what, 20 years?
Peter moved into Perrins Walk in 1975, and we became pally. But I left London at the end of in 76 essentially, and didn't return till 1983, and from that point we were pally. I moved over to Ireland, and Peter came to visit me there, not specifically to visit me. He was visiting someone else, but
who was he visiting?
I've forgotten.
Right. But you also, tell me then about the tapes, or the very famous tapes that you did with Peter.
Well, over a period of time, Peter would come round, and I'd have the tape running, and things appeared on those tapes, and I'd been I spent 6 years trying to write a book about what had happened to me in 1976, came to want to put what I'd failed to put into writing to put on tape, essentially. And then Peter was cooperating with that, and I don't know.
Well, you published some of the tapes, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Peter Cook over at Rainbows. It was a double CD with stuff on that wasn't what it could have been, but
what could it have been? What were you hoping it would have been?
Oh, just things that should have been on it weren't on it. Things that had been said that would have been good to have been on it weren't on it. But it doesn't matter.
Oh no, of course it mattered. So what were the things you'd like to have been on it? Tell me about it now. We'll get them recorded for the sake of history.
Just really me talking with Peter about things in the Bible, things I said I said that would have been, would have been nice for them to appear instead of. There was one particular conversation which was edited, and what was edited out of it was the most relevant thing I've said.
All right. So which conversation was that, and what was edited out?
I really can't remember. It's I don't know. It was I don't know. There's still something that can be done there, I'm sure.
Oh no. Well, do you still have the tapes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we should play them. We should get them out and talk about them.
Okay.
No, fantastic. Well, listen, I understand. I'm sorry that the press got your birthday wrong, the actual date, but it sounds like we're all limbering up to January the 7th, when the big celebrations will happen. In the meantime, let's get John Otway on the show and chat to him, and also continue to try and track down Russell Brand.
Yeah. No, we need to get a newspaper story of what we're doing, essentially, to it's a big story. It's a big story to be able to reveal what I've been waiting to reveal now for 44 years, and which is amazing in itself. That what was revealed to me back in 1976, I still haven't. I still haven't put that out there.
Well, do you want to put it out now? Do you want to just? I think it's good because we often, every time we speak, we reiterate the same message, and you quote the same passages. What is the story?
Just in essence, to show that the Bible is telling us that everything is predetermined and scripted, and that we are all made unconscious spirit entities playing our parts in a mystery play that spans 7 terrestrial ages and fits what William Shakespeare said in 33 words, and a consonant. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. And Shakespeare didn't comprehend the meaning of those words that had come into his head and rambles off, but he is. Those 33 words tell the story that the Bible is telling of a play that spans 7 ages, and 5 of those ages are clearly in the past, and I am made to suppose that we're living towards the apocalyptic conclusion of the 6th act, and that's where I think we are. And the one man who plays many parts is the God of this world, the Lord Yahweh. He is made to play many parts in the mythical Bible stories, including the part of Jesus, who is called Christ, but is portrayed, as I say, as being the Antichrist, and that is the joke of everything, and again, the Bible says that people will worship the creature above the Creator, and Jesus, he is the creature. It's a big story.
Oh no, it's a huge story, and in honour, you probably haven't seen my cup, but I've got this. I've got my wonderful Shakespearean quote. It's always sad when the bard gets assigned to a coffee cup, and I would challenge you to a battle of wits, but I see you are unarmed, as it says on my coffee cup this morning. But you're certainly not unarmed at all, and it's.
What play is that quote?
Well, good point. He might have said it when he was down the old Bull and Bush. So right. It may not have been in any particular side, but it was always interesting. And you mentioned about this revelation, and we often talk about it. And it's not just the surprise; we are getting it out there. But you were saying that it's actually your friend who revealed it to you. Remind me about that story.
Well, I had a friend, close friend, who died in 1973, and in 1976, this time back in 1976, exactly this time, 76. I was in Ireland, as I say. Things had happened, and mystical things, and the voice of this friend called David, I was made to suppose was speaking in my head, and he was guiding me to read the Bible, and I understand, and it all got freaky. There were other voices started coming into my head, trying to interfere with what was happening. It got very freaky. I went through several exorcisms with a quite famous exorcist, Christopher Neil Smith. If you Google Christopher Neil Smith, he'll come up, and it was everything climaxed on January the 7th, 1977, and I've not heard a voice in my head since then. I've been I'd flown over from London to the conclusion of what I was being guided to understand in the Bible was I was being guided to follow the contradictions and to be able to separate the separate ages that were past, and I was made to suppose that everything was a play that was set in 7 acts, and 5 of those acts were in the past, and I came to the point, the final conclusion that what I was being shown was correct came in the book of Revelations, where it said, and there are 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other is yet to come. And when he comes, he must continue a short while. That was the final confirmation to me of the 7 acts in the play, and the 5 of those acts were in the past, and into the gardens, and it's snowing, and then this satanic voice came into my head, and I got on the plane and came to London to have the exorcism, and it didn't quite work, and I left St Saviour's Church in Hampstead and went to try and find another exorcist, because I went back after Christopher Neil Smith had performed this attempted exorcism, but as I say, it hadn't worked, and I went to see a Jewish mystic writer called Warren Kenton, and he wasn't an exorcist, but he attempted to do something with me, and anyway, I got back on the plane to go back to Ireland, and my friend David's voice came into my head. I never wanted to hear another voice in my head, and it reached the point where I got back to my home in Wicklow, and things had happened. Little bits of conversation with David, and the satanic voice came back into my head, and I screamed. And when I screamed, another voice came into my head and said to me, "Be still, your test is now over." And that voice then, in the next few minutes, tuned me in one by one to voices that had been in my head, was showing me that everything that had happened in my head had been controlled by this one voice. Like channels were opened and a voice would come in and then be shut off, and then another voice would come in and be shut off, and we're showing me that everything that had happened to me had been being directed by something higher. And that was in my original writing. My original writing was Heather Styler. I'd met this girl. She was the sister of Trudy Styler, who married Sting, and her sister was going to type out what I'd written, and it's a story. It's a story.
Did she never type it out?
No.
But do you still have your note?
We were coming back to London for her to type out what I'd written in a couple of months and what I'd written. On the way back to London, me and my two Labrador dogs, we dropped into her parents' home at outside Birmingham somewhere, and her father was a bit into the mystic and was interested in what I was doing, and wanted me to put him in touch with someone who had died, and it didn't work. I left their home a bit bemused, and on the drive from Birmingham to London, then things started to go wrong in my head, and that was the beginning of my series of exorcisms, and I burnt what I'd written. I burnt the writing that she was supposed to be typing, and yeah, that was, as I say, almost exactly this time back in 1976.
Do you remember? Would you be able to recreate what you'd written?
Well, really, what I'd written was telling my own story, leading up to what was happening to me at the time, and as I say, after that was really the most significant part was me trying to write about what I'd been shown in the Bible, and yeah, I spent 6 years failing to complete it, and making different attempts to write the story, and I've still got lots of things that I attempted to put into a book, but it's to me just this 10-minute audition script. Everything really relevant that I've got to say will be in that 10-minute script, Andrew.
And well, we've had versions of that. So how did you meet Trudy's sister? How did that come about?
Well, I knew Trudy. I knew Trudy lived in Hampstead, and the last time I saw her was she came to visit me with Sting on a day that was his birthday, and I gave him. I had a wonderful album of photographs from Newcastle United's 3 cup finals, 3 winning cup finals in the 1950s, and I gave him my album of Newcastle United photographs. It was calculated. I was trying to get him to buy the New End Theatre in Hampstead, and wanted to use it as like headquarters for Captain Rainbow's Universal Party, but it didn't happen. But he went off with my album of Newcastle United photographs, and I haven't seen him since.
Oh no! How long ago was that?
That was must have been 85 or 86, probably 1986. Yeah, it's memories.
Right, but you then met Trudy's sister through as a result of that, because effectively you were neighbours, you're in the same sort of neighbourhood.
She wasn't living in Hampstead, but Trudy introduced me to her, and she was an attractive young lady, and I thought something was going to happen between us on a romantic level, but it didn't happen because of what occurred, what was made to occur in the final couple of months of the 6-month trip that I was taken on, and I don't know, the glory, jest, and rhythm of the world. Alexander Pope viewed in his essay on man, describes mankind as being alike in ignorance, his reason such, whether he thinks too little or too much, in endless error hurled, the glory, jest, and riddle of the world, and that's what we're all involved in, Andrew.
Right. Okay. And so you haven't been in touch with that family at all since the 80s, is that right?
Yeah, Trudy is on Facebook. I send occasional messages, but never get any direct reply from her. But
what sort of messages do you send?
I don't know, just on things she's posted and what have you.
But she hasn't blocked you, so you can
no.
So you can still send messages. And have you asked about your Newcastle album?
No.
Do you want it back?
I don't mind. No, I gave it to him as it was his birthday, and I gave it to him as a birthday present. But as I say, it was calculated as part of trying to get him to buy the New End Theatre. And
did he buy the New End Theatre? I think we know the answer to that.
No. The New End Theatre is now a synagogue run by a rabbi with my surname. Part of the synchronicity of everything. The New End Theatre was just used to be a morgue originally. I don't know.
So you gave Sting your Newcastle album for his birthday. What did he give you for yours?
Nothing. I never had any connection with him on any of my birthdays. As a matter of fact, that was the only time I actually met him was that day in 1986, I think it must have been. It's all hazy.
All hazy. Well, I'll tell you what, not hazy. We've clarified that your birthday was 2 days ago on October the 13th. We've clarified we're going to celebrate on January the 7th. That's the next important day. And in the meantime, you're still working on the script. We'll have a look at that. We'll try and get John Otway on the show and chat to him about all sorts of things. And you'll continue in your quest for the casting of The Spirit of Truth.
Yeah, we're trying to get Ben Real to put together some video footage that includes his launch of the Wonder Party. It was billed as I called it the official, unofficial launch.
The official, unofficial. Well, we should get him on the show as well. So we'll try and get him involved and have a look at that footage as well, yeah?
Lovely.
George, it's a real pleasure. Many happy returns, albeit 48 hours late.
Thank you very much.
And we'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
Lovely, Andrew.
Take care. Thanks, George. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
There you go. So the wonderful Rainbow George celebrating his birthday 48 hours after the event on the 13th of October. That was his 80th birthday. He shared his birthday with Margaret Thatcher, who would have been 95. Can you believe it? 95. And Cliff, we found out, actually he moved his birthday from the 13th. It would have all happened on the 13th. So Cliff celebrated his birthday on the 14th. If you have any opinions on anything we've discussed, you can write to me at guests@octopustv.com. That's guests@octopustv.com. But for now, thank you again to George, and thank you to you for joining me. See you next time. Bye-bye.